Ueckar here, back with another TFT fundamentals video. Today we're going to talk about transitioning your board, what you need to do to be as crisp and clean as possible as you're transitioning your units from the early game into the mid game or the late game. In the first half of this video, I'm going to give you a framework, a set of questions you can use to build your transition plan. The plan that you're going to need to rely on when you're in a roll down, you get in that confusing, dizzy spot, and you need to make a quick, snap decision. Making this plan ahead of time will make that immensely easier for you. In the second half of the video, I'm going to talk about how you can use your time most effectively in that narrow window where you need to transition a board. As you're building your framework, here are some questions that you want to ask yourself. First, you want to think about what items you have and what potential carries could use those items. You also want to consider what compositions or units fit well with that main carry that you want to run. Next, you want to think about what units from your current board, the board state that you have in the early game going into mid game or mid game going into late game, that you want to play around, or units that you have on your bench. Maybe you have a pair that you could incorporate into the future board that you want to build. You can play around that. You also want to consider how much gold you have to roll. If you're trying to pivot into a bunch of 5 costs and you only have 20 gold, it's probably not a great idea to roll because you're not going to be able to hit. Even if you did hit a shop with all 3 of the single 5 costs you want, it costs 15 gold to upgrade that unit. It's just too much. You also want to think about your personal ability, how fast you're going to be able to roll that gold and transition your units so that you're not taking a million HP in the next round after you do your transition. These are questions that are going to help you determine what you look to transition to and how you look to transition during that mid game or late game roll down, and make your decisions faster as you go. Here's an example. I'm going into this spot, okay? I'm about to roll down on 4-2. I'm pretty low HP, which is why I decided to roll down on 4-2. As you can see, I only have 23 gold. So it's not a tremendous amount of gold. It's a bit dangerous, honestly, to roll. But the additional reason that it's good is that I have 2 Leonas and 2 Dravens. These are huge pairs for me. What potential carries could use my items? I have an Infinity Edge, a Rage Blade, and a QSS as my main 3 carry items. That could go on Draven. Because I have 2 Dravens here, that's what I'm looking for. It could also go on somebody like a Sivir, or a Jinx, or even a Jace. But because I have these 2 Dravens, I'm probably going to try to transition into a Draven comp. Because I have so many bodyguards, you can see I also have a Braum and a Blitzcrank on my bench. It's looking like I'm going to play bodyguards with Draven. I also have a Debonair Draven, as you can see, so I probably want to try and get at least one other Debonair besides Leona and Draven on the board. So those are the units that I'm looking for going into my roll down. This is one of the more straightforward spots that you're going to see when you're trying to do a roll down. It's not super unclear, but there are a lot of different options as well though. Say that I hit a Vi 2. Well, I could probably play that Vi 2. I can cut out of these innovators, which I'm probably going to be doing anyway. So you ask yourself those questions, and we have the setup here for a good roll down. The other factor, and you can see I'm picking up these victors, is how do your augments fit? Right now, as you can see, I have meditation. And so what I'm thinking about here, in addition to trying to build this Draven board, is how can I put a secondary carry on the board to use my meditation well? And Victor's a great meditation user. He has a lot of mana, and his cast, even though he's 1-star, does a lot even with no items. So Victor's a great option here. As you can see, we roll not that much gold, and we do hit the Draven too. This is a pretty straightforward rolling spot, but we'll talk about, we'll look at later a couple of less straightforward options and see what that looks like. A big thing that you need to think about going into these roll downs is how are you going to be able to end up with a board on the other side of your roll down that's still going to have 2-star carries that are strong. Sometimes you can get away with a 1-star carry if it's a 5 cost or a 4 cost. But even then, it's going to be pretty dangerous, especially like if you're playing a Draven 1 in stage 4. In my lobbies, it's going to be pretty tough. Here's another example of a position that I was in where I had to make a pretty big roll down. Here we're looking at blue buff, or blue battery rather. Blue battery works really well on Ahri, so I'm kind of thinking about, okay, am I going to build blue buff for Ahri? Yeah, hopefully. So Ahri is probably the best option here, especially on the new patch though. It could also be an Orianna carry potentially, a Seraphine carry. There's a couple different AP options that I would have here with the blue battery and so many tiers. I could also potentially go into something that doesn't revolve around the blue battery and the tiers and just plays AD around this Giant Slayer. Because I don't have that many carry items, it's pretty flexible right now which carry I'm going to end up using. Right now my board has a lot of bodyguards and it has a lot of arcanists. So if I can build a board around bodyguards or arcanists, that's probably at least what I'm going to be playing in this next turn on 4-5 after I execute this roll down. How fast can I do this roll down? That's a tough question. I think this spot in particular, because it's so ambiguous, it's going to be a difficult roll down to execute really quickly. So let's take a look and see how I execute it. We hit the Ari right away, which is nice, but I need to 2-star some units. One tip that I'm going to talk about coming up is that you really want to clear out your bench of units you're probably not going to play. I think that's one major error that I make during this roll down is, as you can see right now, I hit this Malzahar pair, but I don't know what to sell because I haven't thought it through far enough in advance. I want to hold this Jinx, but I need to get rid of some units. I'm also running out of time. As you can see, I only have 9 seconds left. I think what I should have done here before the roll down is sell this Ziggs, sell this Ashe, because I'm probably not going to play 5 Syndicate, and I'm also probably not going to play around remaking the Ziggs. I mean, if I need to, I can remake it later, but worst case, I could just make a Chalice on my Ziggs later. I have so many tiers that I'm going to be able to make blue buff anyway. So I think that's the major error that I make on this roll down, but it ends up still panning out sort of decently. I mean, it could be a lot better though, as you can see. This Braum would obviously be better than something. It might have been Braum over Silco here if we had to build the optimal board. It still turned out alright, but I didn't quite get through all of my gold. I didn't hit a 2-star carry, and it's just kind of scuffed. I mean, we end up winning this fight anyway, but this is not really the spot that you want to be in after your big roll down. You want to be a little bit more clean, a little bit more crisp with it, but it is difficult. As you can see, even me, a challenger player, still sometimes struggles in these more ambiguous roll downs or roll downs where you need to have a lot of units on your bench. This is why planning is so important. If you can have a cohesive plan going into your roll down, you'll know exactly what you need to do. Let's talk about what you need to do to use your time most efficiently once you have this plan built up. I want to talk about the time constraints that you'll generally have in a standard turn. Let's go back to the clip we just looked at and see an example of how the time works out. As you can see, it's 30 seconds. It starts right here, and you have 30 seconds right here that you can spend leveling, you can spend rolling, you can spend scouting, you can do all sorts of things. But as you can see, and we just watched this roll down, I'm spending most of the bulk of this planning stage rolling for different units. There's a big reason why, and we're about to see it in just under 10 seconds. But you want to make sure that during this 30 seconds, you're getting the right units on your board and you're getting them in the right position. Now, why is this? Let's hit the pause. You see this 5 seconds right here? This is crucial to your transition phase. This is 5 extra seconds that you can't move units around. Your opponent can't move units around either. But what you can do during this time is put your items on. Nothing else is going on. As you can see, I've wasted about 3 seconds of it. You can also, of course, put items on once the fight starts. But during this 5 seconds, you can be taking these items instead of buying Kaisa. I can take these items and put them on my Ari. I can build a Chalice on my Ziggs if I want to. It's really important when you're trying to execute a clean transition that you use your 35 seconds that you have effectively. If you only have 35 seconds and 5 of those seconds you can't move any units, well, you should use that 5 seconds to put items on. I've had a few experiences where I've had students that start putting their items on during the 30 seconds that they could be rolling, and then they don't end up spending all of their gold on time. Sometimes when you get to the 5 seconds, it depends whether you're fighting on your board or the opponent's board. You see how I'm jumping into this portal right here? I actually can't put items on my units right now because I'm stuck in the portal. During my 5 seconds, my units are populating in slowly, so I have to wait for my Galio to show up so I can put the spark on. If you low roll during your transition and you're fighting on your opponent's board, you might end up not putting your items on until a little bit later. Despite that downside, it's still better to use your 5 seconds as the time that you're going to put items on and use the 30 seconds that as the time that you can build your board, because it's so critical to be building your board, getting the correct units on. And if you do this, even if you get unlucky, as you can see, you can still win the game. If you're a little bit more inexperienced in the transitions, or you have to do a really, really big transition, you can do it during the creep round. This is going to sound a little bit counterintuitive. You have to break your eco, you're going to have less money to roll, but that's okay. If you're transitioning, say you're going to do a level 7 roll down at 4-1, instead of doing it at 4-1, you can do it at 3-7 on the creep round. That'll give you an extra 30 seconds of planning period that you'll be able to roll with. It might not be the full 30 seconds, but it just gives you extra time that you're able to roll. Say that you have 50 gold to roll, well, you can roll 30 of it on the creep round and then roll 30 again on 4-1. Or if you're doing a level 8 roll at 5-1, or maybe a level 9 roll at 6-1, if you're rolling at a time that coincides with the creep round, you can use that extra time to make your roll down happen and make sure that you're saving as much HP as possible. That's all I've got for this video, folks. Let me know what you think in the comments. Please drop a like, subscribe to the channel. A lot of people have been watching these videos, but not that many of you are subscribed. Thank you so much to everybody who has subscribed, and if you haven't, hit that button down in the bottom right. Thanks so much, everybody. Good luck on the climb, and I'll see you next time.